another Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. Sorry I'm coming on here so late here on this Saturday night, but I was finishing up another exciting Braves win. The Braves had a horrible start to the season, but since their 0-7 start, they're 12-7, so they've almost reached 500 for the first time this season, and should get there by the end of this upcoming week because they play the Rockies this week, and the Rockies are by far the worst team in baseball. They might be worse than last year's White Sox team, and last year's White Sox team was horrible. So if the Braves don't at least win 2 out of 3 from the Rockies, there's a problem. But I wanted to come on here live tonight, which, by the way, if you jump on here, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure you give the video a like and a thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed, please do so and share the video on all social media platforms. But I wanted to come on here and talk some more about the NFL draft. I talked about 27 of the first round picks yesterday, so basically, for the most part, the whole first round. But now I just want to talk about some other notable players outside of the first round. Now, these are guys that, if I have to tell you who they are, or who they played for, then you're not really that much of a college football fan, because every player I'm fixing to talk about either had a outstanding collegiate career or played for one of the top teams in college football, or in some cases both. So if you stop and say, who is that, then you need to check your college football man card, because you're not as big of a fan as you thought you were. I'm not going to tell you who these guys played for in college. I will a couple of them, only because there's a story behind it. But for the most part, I'm just going to tell you their name and who drafted them. Not even what round they went in, just their name and who drafted them. We've got Nick Emanwari, who was probably the most consistent, best defensive player in college football this past year as far as his position and what he did. He was consistent all year long. He goes to the Seattle Seahawks. Now we've got Quinshad Judkins going to the Browns. You're going to hear quite a few recognizable names that the Browns drafted the last couple of days that are quarterbacks and running backs. So it looks like the Browns are pretty much just trying to revamp their offense. And then somebody actually asked me earlier on Facebook, what are the Browns, doing drafting all these quarterbacks? They already had 3 on the roster. And then as I go throughout this list, you'll see they drafted 2 more. So now they have 5 quarterbacks. And they asked me if I could make that make sense. I said, well, no. First of all, it's the Browns. Nothing they've done in the last 10 years makes any sense at all. But secondly, maybe they figure if we draft all these quarterbacks and sign all these quarterbacks, maybe it's going to make the competition better and make all these guys try harder, because, you could easily lose your job when you've got 4 other guys sitting behind you. But that doesn't work, because they all suck. You can't fix suck by making it deeper. Having a deep quarterback room doesn't make the players not suck, and they suck. Deshaun Watson is still going to suck. Joe Flacco is still going to suck. You're not all of a sudden going to not suck because the quarterback room got deeper. Kenny Pickett still sucks. We've got Travion Henderson going to the Patriots. So both of Ohio State's great running backs go later in the draft. One goes to the Browns and one to the Patriots. Of course, the difference is Travion Henderson was there for what seemed like 20 years, and Quinshad Judkins was a transfer this past year from Ole Miss. But both of Ohio State's running backs get drafted. Luther Burden to the Bears. The guy whose last name I hate because of the way it's pronounced, according to the way it's spelled. It looks like Tyler Show or Tyler Shao, but it's pronounced Tyler Shuck. I think he played for 12 teams in college. He goes to the New Orleans Saints. Anthony Belton for the Packers. Trey Harris, the Chargers. Tate Ratledge, who was at Georgia since Jim Donnan was the head coach, gets drafted by the Detroit Lions. Andrew Makuba goes to the Eagles. Dylan Fairchild, the Bengals. Caleb Johnson, the Steelers. Now, Caleb Johnson goes to the Steelers, as well as Yahya Black. He goes to the Steelers. And the reason why that's notable is because those two guys were teammates in college with Iowa. And there's always been a lot of comparisons between Iowa in college football and the Steelers in the NFL because both teams wear the same exact colors. Both teams have a rich tradition or rich history, depending on whether it's college or the NFL. And both teams are pretty much the only teams, Iowa at the collegiate level, the Steelers on the NFL level, who don't go through head coaches every 4 or 5 years. You know, Iowa football's had 2 head coaches in basically 50 years, and the Steelers have had 3 head coaches in 75 years. You know, both teams believe in continuity. Just because you have a bad season doesn't mean you change head coaches. You know, Iowa had Hayden Fry for 90 years, and now they've had Kirk Ferentz for 25 years plus. And the Steelers have had 3 head coaches since they started. So you've got 2 players in Caleb Johnson and Yahya Black who go from the black and gold continuity of Iowa to the black and gold continuity of the Steelers. Plus, when your name is Yahya, you're already a notable player. Sounds like a small child getting excited. Yahya, Yahya, Yahya. Then we have Jalen Milroe to the Seahawks. Dylan Gabriel to the Browns, and I believe he'll probably, maybe not be their starting quarterback. I think Deshaun Watson starts the season as a starter for the Browns. But if he's as bad as he has been the last 3 years, and there's no reason to see why he wouldn't be, I mean, he's been terrible for the last handful of years, really. I think Deshaun Watson gets a couple of starts. I think Joe Flacco gets a couple of starts. I think Pickett gets a couple of starts. And I think Dylan Gabriel will start a game or 2 before the season is over with. Cam Scatabo, one of the best names in football, goes to the New York Giants. Some say Scatabo, some say Scataboo. It should be Scatabo since it's only 1-0, but most folks say Scataboo. Either way, it's a great name. Dante Thornton to the Raiders. Trevor Etienne goes to the Panthers. Now, Trevor wasn't near the collegiate player Travis was. It's not close. If you even try to compare them, you're out of your mind. It's not. But that doesn't mean anything. You know, a lot of times, people have great college careers and go to the NFL, and it never works out. And then some players have decent college careers, and they go to the NFL, and they're great. And it could be that way with Trevor with the Panthers. But collegiate-wise, Travis walks circles around Trevor. But that doesn't mean a hill of beans when it comes to the NFL. Barrett Carter to the Bengals. Dylan Sampson, the Browns. Shedeur Sanders, the Browns. Oronde Gadsden, who played at Syracuse ever since current ESPN play-by-play guy Sean McDonough was at Syracuse. He goes to the Chargers. Ollie Gordon, who in 2023 looked like the best running back in college football, and in 2024 he just disappeared. He goes to the Miami Dolphins. Kyle McCord going to the Eagles. Will Howard, the Steelers. Riley Leonard, the Colts. Graham Mertz, the Texans. R.J. Mickens, the Chargers. And Quinn Ewers, the Dolphins. Now, it's funny because I don't think Will Howard is a fantastic quarterback. But to me, if I was a general manager, I would pick Will Howard over Shedeur Sanders. Will Howard has the arm strength. He has the size. He's not, tall and lanky like Shedeur Sanders. He's an average size guy. He's not entitled. He's not a spoiled brat. He hasn't been coddled all his life. He has zero off the field issues. So I would have chosen Will Howard over Shedeur Sanders, but it's funny how, Will Howard goes that late to the Steelers and nobody talks about it. He's a better quarterback than Shedeur Sanders, and Shedeur Sanders goes late, and you would think there's fixing to be a world war. It makes no sense how the media is. Will Howard, collegiate-wise, may not have put up as good of numbers as Shedeur Sanders, but, he had a much better win-loss record, and he has a much better size than Shedeur Sanders. If Sanders takes one hard hit, he's going to be out 10 years. He is just as tiny as it gets. But any thoughts on any of this, please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I asked my buddy, do you enjoy being a waiter? And he said, well, it puts food on the table. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.